Hello, my name is Geraldine Clark, and I'm your host for today's show. And welcome. I'd like to welcome to the studio Dale Bellisfield, and she is going to talk to us today about different herbal medicine, and I would say versus traditional medicine. So, welcome, Dale, and let's just start talking about you. I see you brought all these different medications with you. So why don't we just get a feel for what is herbal medicine? Let's start there.
Well, herbal medicine is really the use of the plant materials to help either prevent conditions or to help to intervene in certain conditions. But many of them are just our normal foods, which are also medicines. There's a whole spectrum between food and herbs and poisons, which all can be part of the plant material. So hopefully we have more of the foods and medicines than the poisons part. But even those are used in certain situations. I didn't bring any of those with us today, but I did bring some of the food medicines that are really, really wonderful. Things like garlic, which would have antibacterial, antiviral, anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer activity. It has a whole lot of activity, even as a food. In fact, it's best used as a food.
Actually, I was just recently diagnosed with high blood pressure. And I went out and I got some garlic pills and parsley and other things like that. And when I went to the doctor, she told me, you don't need that, just eat garlic.
Your doctor said that?
My doctor told me to just go ahead. It's cheaper, and just eat garlic every day. And then, of course, carry some breath mints with you afterwards. But pretty much she gave me no medication whatsoever. She just told me to eat garlic.
That's great. You have a very special kind of doctor. And what's really nice is that nowadays more physicians are starting to integrate the use of foods as medicines. It used to be that physicians were not really trained much in dietary interventions, but so much of our diseases are as a result of poor diet that it's really crucial to have great food as your primary medicine. So garlic is one way. Raw garlic is the best way, of course, and she was right in that because most of the components are active. You actually need to crush it and let it sit a little ways before you use it. But there's ways to use it that may not be irritating to your stomach. Things like pesto is a food medicine that uses raw garlic. Guacamole, salsa. There's a dish that Mediterranean peoples use with yogurt and raw garlic and dill and cucumbers. So that's a really delicious food medicine that you'd be getting in lots of garlic.
You sound like you're making a dip.
Yeah, they're kind of like dips, but it's a great way to get that kind of medicine into you so that it'll taste good, not irritate your stomach, and not too much of the garlic breath. Though if you already have a situation, let's say you have bronchitis, garlic is great for that too, so that you can crush it, put a little olive oil in it, spread it on a little bread, and then eat it. You'd need to eat a couple of cloves a day, but garlic, those things that give you the garlic breath, are really things, those oils that help to kill microorganisms in your lungs. So they're excreted through your lungs, so it's a wonderful way to help with any lung kind of conditions. Pneumonia, bronchitis. Would it be the only thing I used? I don't know. It depends on the person. But it's a great way to start to introduce food as medicine into one's life. I'm really glad that your doctor talked to you about it.
And now you're talking about the lungs. Okay, we're in winter, you know, so now colds, the flu, you know, everyone is encouraging us to make sure we get a flu shot. But say you don't want a flu shot, what is something that a person could do that would help them with holistically use herbal medicines or holistic medicine to keep from getting that flu shot? Because for me, I'm a big baby. I would prefer not to get the shot.
I'm glad you asked that. There's something that will protect our lungs and a lot of our immune health that has been overlooked, and that's vitamin D. It's really important for you to get your level tested And I like to see levels fall within the middle range, not to the too low or too high end of the scale. So your lab results would be somewhere between 55 to 80 nanograms per milliliter, which is the lab result. So often people are told not to be out in the sun because it'll cause cancer, that we've become terrified of being in the sun. So now all of us are at risk for low or have actually low vitamin D. And vitamin D, we think of it as something that just helps to add calcium to our bones, but it actually is an immune compound that we need. We won't get enough from our diet. We have to supplement it, and it's very protective of the lungs, especially in the winter. One of the things that is correlated with the winter cold and flu season is that we have less sunlight, so we make less vitamin D. In New Jersey, if you were to, you could tap dance up Central Avenue naked, you would get arrested, but you wouldn't get any vitamin D on your skin because the sun's rays are not as high in the sky to activate the D on your skin. So from about October through March, you don't make any vitamin D here in New Jersey, so you have to supplement it. I like the liquid form because you don't taste it, and I hate swallowing pills, so it's a personal thing. So I recommend for people what works for them. Some people don't want to take liquids. Some people only trust pills. So whatever works, I try and accommodate their lifestyle because everything works better if you take it. So the vitamin D is great, and it will help your immune system as well as protect your lungs for the winter, so you don't have to go get the shot. But we want to make sure that your levels are high enough, so the dosage will vary based on how low you are. I've had patients with a vitamin D level of 6, and I told you I'd like that at 55 and above. So.
Okay. So now you mentioned vitamin D, but now growing up, one of the things that my grandmother always mentioned is you had to have vitamin C in order to keep the, healthy and keep the cold away and not to get the flu. So what about vitamin C?
Vitamin C is really important too, as is zinc. There's a bunch of things that help the immune system. These are, we're talking nutrients. These are not herbs. These can be in foods, or you can have them as supplements. There's foods that are rich in vitamin C are the citrus, of course. Red peppers are really high in vitamin C. Kiwis are high in vitamin C, and vitamin C has many activities in the body. It does have immune benefits, and it also helps build collagen, so people that have joint problems or have had surgery, vitamin C is really good after that. So yeah, vitamin C is great, and zinc is really good too, both in foods like pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds are really high in zinc, oysters, and also, or as supplements. But there's a range within which we like to keep it. I like to keep it under 75 milligrams a day if you have a supplement. And also in terms of what you were asking for, for things to help protect you during the winter, we want to keep your sugar low because sugar slows down or shuts off, in certain cases, aspects of your immune system. So we want to look at your diet, so to keep sugars down. Soda pop and garbage foods that are really lacking in nutrients, a lot of the white foods, are best minimized. It's hard to say because now it's the holiday season, so we're doing so much of that. But you have your Thanksgiving, you have your Christmas, you have your New Year's, and then try and also supplement that with really great foods in between.
Now you said white foods. What does that mean?
White foods, white bread, white sugar, white flour products. So we're talking what most of America eats. Pretzels, bagels, cake, cookies, pie, all that stuff. English muffins that taste good. They're great comfort foods, but they really deplete our nutrients.
So instead of eating white food, you should be eating?
Richly colorful. We eat the rainbow. Is how I like to look at it.
So eat the rainbow.
Of richly colored foods. I'm not talking lime jello. I'm talking real foods. Things I like talking about eating black foods, blue foods. I consider chocolate, dark chocolate, a medicine food.
Now you're talking my language. Okay.
Blackberries, black beans, black olives, black figs, dark grapes, those kinds of things that have those really deep pigments. They do many things in our body, and they help. They're all anti-inflammatory, all the pigments. Okay. Those are a family of plant compounds.
Okay, so you said black foods. I've noticed for myself lately, which I wasn't doing before, but I see that I'm doing now. Blueberries. All of a sudden, I have gotten this taste for blueberries and black cherry juice and cranberry juice. And it wasn't something that I did before, but now all of a sudden I noticed that my body is starting to crave different things that it wasn't craving before.
Interesting. Sometimes people's bodies crave what they need. It isn't always true, but
Right.
sometimes I love to look at cravings to see if that's telling us something. And so the blueberries are very good for your eyes. Those blue and black pigments help to protect the blood vessels that feed the retina of the eyes. And they also help your brain. They help with memory, and
good.
they're antihistamine for people with allergies. And so
that's
they're
even
great.
good, yeah.
Sometimes we can't get enough from our food, and we need to intervene, kind of up the scale of intensity. We may need a capsule or something. Juice is good in small amounts because it has a lot of sugar. You're not
Right.
getting the fiber
Right.
and the immediate aspects of other plant compounds in the food that may be thrown away once they squish it and make the juice. But
So I should be picking my own cherries and cranberries and making my
well,
own
if you can get
juice?
the cherries when they're in season, that's even better. You'll get certainly some benefits from the cherry juice, but you may be getting tons of sugar with it. So
Oh.
you can have a little bit of the black cherry juice and some seltzer with it, which is nice, and a squish of lime, which will help digestion and tastes good too. Cherry juice is good for gout, if anybody in
Okay.
your family has that. And it's a really nice tasting food medicine. Cherries are so yummy.
Okay, now that we have gone through the fruits, so what about other foods? And I see you have all of these different bottles here. What are some of the
do.
other things that you've brought with you today to
Well,
give us?
Maybe we'll start with the food medicines and then go into the less tasty
Okay.
ones. So there's another food medicine is basil,
Okay.
which has some antiviral activity. It's very good for digestion, and it's very good for calming the nerves. And it tastes good too, the Italian basil. And there's a related plant from India called Tulsi basil or holy basil, and that one is revered. It's called holy basil because in that tradition it's a sacred plant, and it has so many uses. And it tastes similar to the Italian basil, but it's a little more maybe licoricey in flavor, but it makes a delicious tea. So that's something you could have on an everyday basis as well as a seasoning. You're not going to be getting a lot as a seasoning, but cumulatively you may be if you're having that several times a week. And then I brought along a concentrate of cinnamon. So that's a common spice, but we've concentrated it into an alcohol water extract. So the bark, which is the medicinal part, was soaked in a certain percentage of alcohol and water and then left there for a couple of weeks and then pressed and strained out. So we're left with it as a medicine. And when I'm composing my formulas, if they're the liquid ones, then I would put in cinnamon to help with the taste. Plus, cinnamon's really good for circulation. It's warming. It's anti-inflammatory. It helps with cholesterol. And it also helps the body use insulin if the insulin receptors are poor. So for people with diabetes, or in some cases low blood sugar as well, cinnamon is a really nice addition. Plus, for people that don't like the taste of some of these stronger things, it makes the flavor of the medicine that I make up taste a little better.
So I noticed that they sell cinnamon in ground powder
Yes,
like
powdered
form
cinnamon.
or cinnamon sticks. So, and then now I see it in the liquid. So if I'm baking a cake or a pie and it calls for cinnamon, I'm not using this cinnamon.
Correct. You'll use the powdered form just like it would call for in the recipe. But it wouldn't be, especially in a pie or cake, as medicinal.
Right.
Because the sugar and the white flour compounds are not doing you any good.
Right.
But it's really good if you are not lactose intolerant and you would put it in your yogurt, or if you put it on a baked apple, or if you made pretty much, you could do cinnamon tea. You could put that powder in maybe a teaspoon of that in the bottom of a cup and pour hot water over that.
Or oatmeal.
Or oatmeal. right. You can add some ginger to it. You can experiment with the spices. I always encourage my patients to spice it up so that they have a heavy spice hand, because all those spices, what are they? They are plant medicines that taste good. And that's, I mean, some of them are really important topically. The capsaicin is a product that uses a concentrated extract from red peppers, the spicy peppers, the hot peppers. And that's topically used. You don't want to eat that one. But that's used in continuous application for reducing pain. Let's say you have a arthritic shoulder or a bum knee. After a couple of times to apply it, it will eventually block the pain signals from going to wherever that pain was to your brain. So it's a way of numbing.
So you still have the pain, but you won't.
You don't know it.
You don't know that you have.
You don't know that you have pain. So it is perceived that you're not in pain anymore. So for those situations where somebody is really debilitated, I try and use internal, topical, whatever, foods, because we don't want to see anybody in pain. Pain and lack of sleep are two things we need to really help intervene immediately so that we can proceed with the rest of somebody's healing, because you don't have those straightened
Now,
out.
I've used red pepper. It was the
Spicy
same
peppers, you mean?
Crushed red pepper for, of course, to cook with. But years ago, someone told me if you had a sore throat, that it was really the best thing to gargle with vinegar and red pepper. And of course I tried it, and it did work, I have to say. And even to the point where a friend of mine who is a singer, and I told him to use it, and of course he researched it and said that first he wasn't going to do it, but then he did. And he said that he had never heard of that. He was so accustomed to lemon and honey and lemon that works, but it takes a longer time. And he found that he did this and he was able to perform. So now hearing about it numbing, does it do the same thing to your cords? Or?
It does stimulate circulation also, and if he was able to tolerate it and you were in terms of the pain, then I think it's topically anesthetic and improves healing. And I think you're a budding herbalist here. You have another career going for you. Was your family from the islands? Because that's a traditional
yes
island.
and no. Some are. Then I have some that were Native Americans. So it's a combination. And I think that a lot of people of color, and this is just my belief, but from studying history over the years, because you couldn't afford to buy certain things, you had to do with what you had to do with in your home. So a lot of things, I remember my great-grandmother going out into the yard and picking weeds that looked like weeds, and she would put them on the stove and boil them, and next thing you know, you either have it on something over here, or you're drinking it in as a tea or a soup. And we were not allowed to ask certain questions as to what it was. You know,
It's the just take it.
just take it, and hopefully you will survive. But that was what happened. You know, you didn't have the money to go to a doctor. So even childbirth was done at home. I mean, you had a doctor if you could afford it, but for the most part, it was done at home. So I see that it looks like we're going back to the basics.
Back to the future. Yeah, I think we've lost that tradition, and it was a valuable tradition. Not that we don't need pharmaceuticals. There's a place for all of it.
Exactly.
Pharmaceuticals, surgery, et cetera. That's a place on a continuum. But prevention, intervention with, while they're gentler and have much less side effects, they are still effective medicines.
That is the key. You know, I'm so glad you brought that up. One, the side effects from taking medication. I have become fascinated with, I listen when they do a commercial about something. The first thing I listen for is what are the side effects. And 99.9% of the time, the side effects will kill you faster than the actual disease that you have. And we were just talking about that yesterday. Some medicine causes you to think suicidal tendencies.
Yeah, a lot of the antidepressants, ironically, will do that. And some of them, other medicines for autoimmune conditions, give you, make you susceptible to terrible infections because they suppress your immune system, which may or may not be useful in that situation, but some of them also cause lymphoma. And I'm going, really? Lymphoma? I don't know. That's really a
Right, you know,
toss-up. Do I want to have rheumatoid arthritis, or do I want to have lymphoma? Or I don't know. It's tough. So we need them when we need them. There's a
Right,
place
exactly.
for everything. But I always like to use as much as we can. We can use these plant medicines in conjunction with pharmaceuticals.
Okay.
We can use them when somebody would prefer not to. We can use them when somebody is allergic to the medications.
And
we can use them when somebody can't afford them, although these are not cheap now either.
Right.
Going into your backyard is really great to harvest the medicines that grow near you, though many people have poisoned their backyards with pesticides and herbicides, which or are hormone disruptors, many of them. And so I try to take people, if they want to harvest their own medicines, I try and encourage people to go to more clean places to harvest. Sometimes I will harvest nettles, for example, which is a wonderful plant. Tastes good. It's a food plant as well. It stings you.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's kind of hard to pick.
Yeah, but it's kind of like it's that sting releases compounds in the body. People used to whip themselves with nettles in older times because it helped to bring a local reaction, and that helped to reduce pain. So they would hit arthritic joints. I guess not so dissimilar to the capsaicin thing, but it's a little more painful. But in any case, nettles, you cook them, and that stinging stuff is removed, and then they make for a delicious green, or you can dry them and have a really nice tasting tea that helps build your blood and provides you with a lot of minerals and things. So anyway, that's just nettles. There's other things that are growing here in New Jersey that are indeed considered weeds that are incredibly significant medicines for us.
I remember my grandmother used dandelions a lot, and you know, you're looking out in the yard at these yellow flowers out there that look like a weed, but she would put them in a lot of her greens or soup. She would use them. And you mentioned before about pesticides. That's one of the reasons I learned about foods, because I discovered at an early age that I had an allergy to pesticides. So
Smart.
So I learned to read the labels at a very young age, plus with my great-grandmother being alive until I was, you know, a young adult. I also had that background. But yes, I had so many allergies growing up that I really had to pay attention to what I was eating. And because of that, I learned to read the labels. And I find that now people are looking at stuff on the label and going, what is this, you know? So one of the benefits, I would think, of taking herbal medicines is that you don't have those words or ingredients that you're going, what is that? You know, where does that come from? Yeah.
Right. They say that if you can't pronounce it, you shouldn't be eating it.
Put it in your
Although
system.
some of the vitamins that have more scientific names that may be added in some foods. But I think it's really wise to read all labels, because they put in things that are really not healthy in a lot of things, maybe flavor enhancers or fillers. So yes, eat real foods, eat colorful foods if you can, eat foods locally grown. If you can afford it, buy organic or become part of a community-supported agriculture, a CSA, where you can buy actually a share of the farm. And I've done that for the past couple of years. There's a farm in Blairstown that's organic, and they make deliveries all over New Jersey, and it's been wonderful because I get produce that's grown organically throughout the winter, and I feel like I'm supporting the farm. And it's so much food that I couldn't take on the whole order, so I've split that into 3. So it's cost effective as well.
So these farmer markets that come into our community, so those are places that we should be...
You should support them. And, or even better, if you have space, land, start a garden. Grow your own organic garden with good quality soil, and not to use pesticides. Use companion planting or use beneficial insects. There's ways to help increase the yield and to keep the plants strengthened. And you said dandelions. How much money have we spent trying to get our yards dandelion free? It's really sad. We could
the easiest way is to
them
eat it.
instead.
Just eat it. But before we close, you mentioned while we were talking a little while ago, I think you said intergenerational, or what was it? Integrated.
Integrative medicine.
Medicines. So very quickly, tell us what is an integrated medicine? You know.
Well, I like to think, I don't know that I'm the be-all and end-all, the definition of it, but I like to think that integrative medicine is where we look at the whole person, where we consider their stress levels, their diet, their foods, their supplements, their whatever else is involved in their life, and their spiritual life as well. And we see that as the whole of that person, and then we try and intervene with things that can support them in their best, to bring them to their best self, I guess, to grow their best self. And we have a healthcare system that doesn't allow much time for the physician to do that. But those of us who are trained as more holistic practitioners, we take the time. And so my initial consult will be maybe an hour to 2 hours. So I get to understand much more about what the person's goals are and what they like. As I mentioned, some people like capsules or tea, and I try and compose a program that's suited to that person. So it's really person-based medicine, and rather than a one-size-fits-all that's your diagnosis based. It's you, based on you. So.
Well, thank you, Dale. I think that you brought a lot of information to us today. I'm sorry that we're running out of time, that we don't have a chance to talk more about it, but we will invite you back, and because I see there were a lot of bottles we never touched. So
you should see my home.
So I'd like to learn more about this, and and I encourage people to research it on their own, about herbal medicine and the importance of having a good diet and living healthy. So we thank you, and we hope that you learned something today. So thank you, Dale, and we look forward to talking to you again, and we thank you for joining us today. Have a blessed holiday, and we just want to thank everybody for tuning in.
Thank you, and likewise to you. This was really a pleasure for me to be able to talk about what I love to do.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and thank you for joining us today.